Stay tuned for urban legends to ghostly tales of the paranormal, because now it's time for
Message on the Wall.
This is Message on the Wall. In the 1970s, a rather bizarre experiment was devised and carried out by the Toronto Society for Psychical Research that tended to raise more questions than answers, because this is the story of Philip, the imaginary ghost. The group was overseen by Dr. George Owen from the Toronto University, who apart from other things was a psychic researcher who specialised in poltergeist cases. The Owen group, as they became known, consisted of 8 people of varying ages, none of whom claimed to have any psychic gifts, that to this day remain anonymous, being known solely by their first names. This was an experiment not to contact the spirit world, but to invent a person and then make contact with the ghost of the invention, which came in the way of raps, bangs, and that favourite old pastime of the Victorians, table tipping. First, a story had to be built up, with Dr. Owen thinking that inaccuracies in historical references were necessary, and so Philip was born. They chose Philip to be an Englishman who lived at Diddington Hall, which is a real place in Warwickshire. Diddington Hall, an Elizabethan manor house, is no longer a residence. Having been refurbished, it now houses businesses. Philip lived in the 1600s in the time of Cromwell, and being a Catholic was a royalist. He was also married, taking the daughter from a noble family of a neighbouring estate. Dorothea was rather cold and spoilt. It was when Philip was out riding one day that he came upon a gipsy encampment. When his eyes fell upon a raven-haired beauty named Margot, Philip was besotted, she being everything that Dorothea was not. Margot returned Philip's affections, and taking her to Diddington Hall, he set her up to secretly live in the gatehouse on the estate. But it wasn't long before Dorothea realised something was wrong, as Philip spent more and more time with his new love. Dorothea soon found Margot living at the gatehouse, and accusing the girl of witchcraft to steal her husband. Margot was placed on trial, where she was found guilty and sentenced to death, being burnt at the stake. In the meantime, Philip kept a low profile, not venturing to intervene on Margot's behalf in fear of losing his reputation, and Dorothea, who would in compensation take his family home, leaving him destitute. After Margot's death, Philip would often be seen pacing the battlements in remorse. Finally he could go on no longer, and ending it all, threw himself to his death from those same battlements. While this story was being devised, a sketch was made, bringing Philip even more to life, with wavy shoulder-length hair of the cavaliers of the day, and a full beard and moustache. With this information planted in the group's mind, they first met in September 1972 in a series of informal gatherings where they talked about Philip. These sittings continued for several months, and apart from some members of the group claiming to have felt a presence, there was no physical evidence. It was when changes were made to how the group met that they had a breakthrough. They placed old pictures in the room to conform more towards Philip's era and sang songs, and having sittings in full light, these were now dimmed. With these changes, Philip soon made contact in the form of raps coming from the table, with 1 rap for yes and 2 for no. When asked if it was Philip, he affirmed he was. The sittings found Philip becoming stronger, that he could raise the table with ease to moving it from side to side. Others with an interest in the paranormal field sat in to observe and have questions answered. A 15-minute film was made of one of these sessions. Although it answered the question that a ghost can be made up, it didn't answer what actually formed its presence. The human mind? Did the group as a whole make what many accept as thought forms that can take on a life of its own? Or was it a mischievous spirit playing with the group? You have been listening to Message on the Wall, brought to you in association with Paranormal Parodies. You can find Paranormal Parodies at paranormal-parodies.com.